want to ground us in today's conversation and remind us all of KIPP DC's mission. Together with families and communities, we create joyful, academically excellent schools that prepare students with the skills and confidence to pursue the paths they choose, college, career, and beyond, so they can lead fulfilling lives and build a more just world. Today, we will have the chance to share how KIPP DC is really enhancing student learning and the experience as we start this school year. Before we get started, I just want to remind all of us that you are automatically muted and off video. We highly encourage you to submit any questions or comments in the Q&A box. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Clark, KIPP DC's Chief Advancement Officer, to kick us off and share some network updates since the last time we connected.
Thank you, Kristen. And thank you all for joining us today. We're really excited to jump into our conversation this morning. Those of you who I have not yet met, my name is Tom Clark, and I have been on the KIPP DC team for 8 years or so. I'm actually just entering my 9th school year here. So we're really excited to share some of the things that have been going on, especially because this year actually feels a little different after the past couple of years through the pandemic. As you all know, being in a virtual posture and then sort of a hybrid posture, and then even through last year as we continued with quarantines and all the sort of different ramifications of COVID throughout the school year. This year has really felt like almost like the return to normal. Makia will talk a little bit more about that soon, but we are really excited to have welcomed back our KIPPsters. We are now in our 7th week of school for the 2022-23 school year. There have been lots of exciting things happening across the network, both this summer and throughout the school year so far. Some of you may know that this summer we actually were able to launch our first overnight summer camp, which is called Camp KIPP DC, through a partnership with an organization called Change Summer. And we had 500 students attend Bowie State University for 2 weeks, an overnight summer camp. It was really incredible. And we were so excited to offer this opportunity for students to be able to get out of the city and enjoy something really fun, especially after a lot of time cooped up at home over the past couple of years. And we're really looking forward to continuing this partnership in the years to come. We've hosted a number of different vaccination clinics for all of our standard student immunizations, but also for COVID-19. And I'm just looking at the numbers right now. We've administered 1,217 COVID vaccinations across the network to students, to staff, to families, as really part of our effort to continue to keep our schools safe and make sure that our students are able to be in class and learning. So that's been a huge win for us. As I mentioned, we are in our 7th week of school, and so joyful learning is something that we are trying to just embrace and welcome our students back with open arms, and make sure they're feeling excited to be back there and to really reinstill a sense of love of learning, because it's core to who we are as KIPP DC and something that has sort of been missing the past couple of years through the pandemic. And lastly, I wanted just to briefly welcome and share how excited we are that we have just recently brought on Shannon Hodge to join KIPP DC as our new president. She'll be joining us full-time in November, and at that time she's going to actually be part of our Engaging on the Issues conversation series. But she's already been out at schools, meeting with staff and families and students and seeing our classrooms in action. We are thrilled to have her on board. This year, we have continued to expand our footprint in the district. We have more than 7,300 students across our 20 schools in the district now. As you can see, this is sort of the map of all the different KIPP DC schools. Each of the columns here represents a different campus. Each row represents a different school within that campus. So early childhood schools, elementary schools, and middle schools. And then you'll notice on top of this, we have the Learning Center, which is our specialty program for students with the most severe disabilities in the network. And then on top of that, we also have a virtual learning program to allow students to continue to learn virtually and remotely if they so choose, or if they have a specific need. But it's been really incredible to see sort of this vision of what we had hoped for as a pretty robust feeder pattern for our students to guarantee them a spot from pre-K 3 through 12th grade across these different schools. And it's been really amazing to see it all in action this year. Before we dig too deep into some of the investments we've been making this school year and highlighting some of the academic recovery strategy that we're taking, and I saw from Ahmad, there's already a question about sort of the impact of the pandemic on student learning and staff morale, and then some of the programming we're implementing to actually mitigate learning loss and sort of the impact on staff. Just wanted to kind of talk you through our approach to recovery and sort of the strategy we've been taking for the past few years. So over the past 2 years of operating schools during the pandemic, it's been really hard, as you can imagine. And we're now in the third phase of our recovery framework, which was to rebuild our schools. So we knew that we had to reopen, we had to get students back into classrooms, and that started the spring of 2021, and last summer with the start of the school year. We really took the time to reimagine what our schools could look like and what we were offering to our students and families to make sure that we were meeting their needs in this new world. And now we're really rebuilding. We're thinking about what the future looks like and tweaking systems and improving programs so that we can be a more impactful, innovative, and inclusive school system and ensure that all of our students and alumni achieve extraordinary outcomes. So we're really excited about where we're headed here, but that's sort of where we are right now as we think about rebuilding. And we know that COVID has impacted all of us, and particularly our students, our staff, and our families. And as we enter the 2022-23 school year, these have really been top of mind issues for us. We know that mental health has been a major concern for students. Chronic absenteeism has been at an all-time high in DC, and we've seen that at KIPP DC as well. And that there's a massive need for mental health services. Unfortunately, the city is investing in those, and we at KIPP are also doing the same. And then also really taking advantage of the many resources and the funds that have been allocated to us through the federal government, through the state, or the state office of the superintendent, just to make sure that our students have the resources they need as part of this recovery. And so I want to kind of briefly sort of talk you through what our approach has been. You'll see a couple of little smaller things on the left and some bigger topics on the right. So coming into the last year, to the 2021-22 school year, we really identified 4 key areas to drive our investment strategy around recovery efforts. And one was stabilizing the environment, making sure that our schools were safe and healthy places for our students to learn and grow, to make sure that they actually had the resources they need and a welcoming, caring environment, even though there was a lot of change happening and there was a lot of challenges with quarantining and things throughout the school year. The second is around academic acceleration and making sure that we're providing really targeted intervention strategies to support reading and mathematics and all of our instruction there. The third was expanding out of school offerings. I mentioned Camp KIPP DC earlier. We also ran a summer program this year and have thought about before and after care programs as a way to really bring more academic rigor to our students. And lastly, just major investments in talent and technology. Last year, we moved to a 2-to-1 device to student ratio. So that meant that every student had a device to learn from at home as well as at school in case they had to swing from either location throughout COVID. And we made sure that we were bringing in as many great people as possible to provide smaller group instruction, more targeted learning, things like that. So those were sort of our 4 key areas last year. And we've actually continued to do those things this year and really enhance them as we've learned more. But we also have added 4 additional recovery efforts as well. One is around enhancing special education and student support services. 2 is building additional wraparound services. 3 is expanding access to early college. And 4 is focusing on student engagement. And so there are a ton of different things here that we've done. And I've kind of touched on some of these things very, very loosely, but I am excited to hand it over to my dear friend and colleague, Makia Love, to talk us through sort of what that looks like as part of our recovery strategy on the academic side.
Hi, everyone. So glad to be here with you today. I'm Makia. I'm our new chief of schools here for KIPP DC, and I've worked at KIPP DC for more than a decade in various capacities as a teacher first, and then a vice principal, and the person who helps support and manage our elementary schools. I'm really excited for this year and for, as Tom mentioned, a return to normalcy and stabilization. So I'm excited to highlight some of the investments that we've made as it relates to our recovery strategy. First, we'll continue to partner with some wonderful organizations that are connected to the DC behavioral health services like Mary Center and Catholic Charities. Now, those organizations have an employee at our schools full-time, and they work to help support students' mental health needs. These are just general ed students who might need more support, and we found that extra layer of support super valuable coming out of the pandemic. our students have experienced a lot, just like many students across the country. I specifically want to call attention to our academic acceleration program. So this is something that we started last year as we came out of pandemic and found lots of good results from it and are just doubling down on it and continuing it. So our acceleration program is meant to support the students who need the most help in core subjects like math and literacy. It's supporting students in general education who are performing below grade level benchmarks and standards. So there's a focus in both math and literacy on teaching those foundational skills so that students have that foundation to then be able to eventually master and access grade level standards. So we have accelerators who work at each campus and they work with grades 3 through 8. And we also have accelerators who work in literacy specifically with our grades K1 and 2. Students who are considered for participation in this acceleration program are those who, when given a diagnostic, the MAP, were seen to perform in that lowest quartile or in those lowest 2 quartiles. We've seen student performance increase in the targeted skill areas on the MAP, like numerical operations or phonological awareness and literacy after participation in this program. And those results are really exciting for us. On our next slide, I'll talk a bit about our after school and summer experiences. So we continue to partner with just a diverse array of high quality enrichment providers. So we maximize these partnerships with local and national groups to help our KIPPsters grow into well-rounded, thoughtful Washingtonians with connections to the broader community, and just to like expose them to some really cool things, really cool activities outside of the normal academic experience. So our goal is always to equip students with the knowledge, skills, and competence they need to be successful in this competitive, complex world. So while maintaining our existing relationships, we're actually bringing on a few new vendors this year to meet students' specific needs, such as social and emotional learning, mental health supports, which we find to be something that we really need to keep our eye on, and financial literacy, which is, we know, an important skill set. So some of our current partners include the DC Jazz Fest, the Washington Ballet, Pretty Brown Girl, Manpower DC, Higher Achievement, AlphaBest, the YMCA, and Project Iron Kids. And some of those new vendors that I just mentioned are the Washington Urban Debate League, Future Successors, Boys to Businessmen, and Mad Science. Tom mentioned that we were excited to partner with Change Summer to provide students that overnight summer camp experience at Bowie State. Again, 500 students participated. We're going to contribute to this program next year. Kids get to see something different, experience that camp, what it's like to be at camp for 2 weeks, and also just like be at a university. To be on a college campus is pretty cool as well. For technology, with the pandemic, every student was given a device to take home. What we noticed last year was to make sure that our students were safe. There were times when students had to quarantine. And so we gave every student an additional Chromebook. And so we've just kept that 2-to-1 ratio. Students have one that they can access at school and one that remains at home, just to support, like doing the same programs that we do at school. They can also do this at home. And that's been we're really fortunate to have that. For our academic strategy investments, I wanted to share a little bit more about some new investments that we're focusing on this year. First and foremost, enhancing special education and student support. We'll be using our recovery funds to support the Legacy High School Learning Center, which is a small supportive high school program designed to serve KIPP DC students who require level 4 special education setting. This is a great opportunity to further support our students and our school community right there at Legacy. We also expanded support, again, like I mentioned before, with the Department of Behavioral Health to support more Tier 1 students. So we've actually had that last year, but we've grown the number of schools and campuses that those folks serve. As far as wraparound services, we're allocating over $100,000 in funds to further assist our students who are homeless or who are highly transient through additional support with transportation, food, clothing, temporary housing, and tutoring services. Lastly, we are expanding our access to early college through a partnership with the Equity Ed Lab. And we're adding 2 college level courses at Legacy and 4 at KCP. In this college and in the schools, model class work will be facilitated and supported by KIPP DC teachers. And we're piloting the program, but the hope is to potentially make this programming permanently available for 10th graders in the future. So in addition to expanding those dual enrollment offerings for high school students, we've expanded NAF, like the Academy of Finance, to both high schools. So it was just at KCP, now it's also at Legacy, and have opened 2 new academies of IT at each school as well. So giving students exposure to these fields while still in school. First and foremost, we must make sure students are engaged, right? So of course, we are thinking a lot about attendance. I've got my eye on attendance. It's a regional priority. Attendance was something that was really hard during the pandemic, with students and staff needing to quarantine. We've developed a lot of new systems to not only address attendance reactively, but also proactively. We've been doing lots of work around communicating with families, the importance of coming, supporting them with like whatever the challenges might be, and just incentivizing students who come to school each and every day and letting them know that we miss them when they're not here. Some of our upcoming student engagement work when our students are here and with their families is to keep working with the Board of Elections to help get more people registered to vote ahead of the general election in November. We are planning a family and student engagement event this fall on student safety. That's not something that just KIPP DC cares about, and we're excited to be speaking about that in the city. And also we have a new student advocacy group. It's called Voices of the City that's launching. And that's essentially a student ambassador group for KIPP DC, and those students will be leaders who attend events throughout the school and just become engaged and essentially like a liaison between the school community and like the greater issues in DC that students' voices need to be a part of. Though these are new initiatives, and coupled with through these new initiatives and initiatives that we've had and we're continuing from last year, we are planning on rebuilding the KIPP DC network by defining a new approach to schooling that supports students and families even better than before the pandemic. Of course, our North Star is student performance and academic success. Like the rest of the city, we experienced drops in student achievement over the past 2 years, and we were able to assess the baseline for where students are. So we now know the work that has to be done that lies ahead of us. Although we have seen a decrease in achievement, we know what success looks like, and we do know how to get back to pre-pandemic scores. Focus on attendance, really making sure leaders have the resources that they need, a renewed focus on instructional practice and teacher coaching and development. We have a lot of work to do still to address these learning gaps for our students, particularly those that fall in the lowest 2 quartiles. We're using the data from the park and from other internal assessments to triangulate and diagnose where students are in their learning. We've identified these priority areas to tackle. Again, attendance, I mentioned that a lot. It's really important. They've got to be here so that they can learn. Professional development, reducing the barriers again, and just supporting strong conditions for learning, safe, calm, joyful, happy classrooms and school environments. So throughout the pandemic, and as we return to school in person, responding to the needs of our students, our staff, and our families, it's been our North Star, it's been our focus. We did this during the pandemic with town halls, with parents and teachers, many surveys as well. And we're doing the same this year as we come out of the pandemic and we're rebuilding KIPP DC. This year, our new president, I think you see her on the slide on the right with Susan Scheffler, our ED, she's on both slides. They've launched a series of 12 fireside chats with our schools, so they can hear directly from teachers and staff members, as well as share our collective vision for the future. We look forward to all of these meetings that they have across all of our campuses, and to sharing these findings with our staff and supporters like you in the coming months. I'm going to turn it back over to Kristen, who's going to open it up for Q&A. Thank you.
Thanks, Makia, and thank you, Tom, for sharing so many updates and just like where we are in terms of academic investments in the strategy work. So I think really just to kick us off, would love to just hear from the both of you, as you guys have been at KIPP DC for many years, just like what are you really excited about for this school year and hopeful about?
Nikki, do you want to start? I can start.
Sure. Yeah, I can start and you can add on. I think for me, being chief of schools, I work directly with principals and the people who support principals. I'm very excited about the vigor with which our principal team has focused on having an instructional North Star. We lead professional development sessions with our principals once a month. And that's where we really dig deep into academic data, teacher development, best practices. And it's just been really nice cognitively to think about that instead of some of the other things that preoccupied us last year. So for me, it's just digging into student learning and excellent teaching with principals.
Well, that's a great answer, Makia, and fortunately was not the answer I was going to give. I was slightly worried you were going to say the same thing I was. I have been really, really happy to see just a strong level of engagement in our schools. When I go to visit classrooms or I meet with principals and get to like walk the halls, students are just happy to be back in person and feel a sense of normalcy in their education again. It's great to see people like reconnecting and deepening relationships. It's been great to have the opportunity again to have visitors back in schools. So having our families back in classrooms and back into buildings and actually part of community events, to have some of our supporters be able to come visit again, to actually like meet in person. So it's been really wonderful to have that opportunity, and I'm excited to connect with a lot of the folks on this call again.
Thanks for sharing. Mickey, I have a question from Ahmad and just wanting to hear like, will we, and I think this, yes, but like, will we be doing like any fireside chats with parents in the upcoming months?
I think that's a great idea. I'm not sure if any are planned yet, but that's a great idea. And I think that Susan and Shannon would be very amenable to that idea and figuring out how to meet parents at the different campuses or like whatever ways. I think that could work.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
My next question for you both of you is just, there's a lot of highlights that are happening right now, but also I know we are working tirelessly to solve lots of problems. So I think, Tom, it'd be really helpful for you if you can share some of the biggest challenges or questions you and executive team are working on from like the headquarters side. And then Makia, I think hearing more, any challenges or big questions, school leaders, teachers are also just top of mind for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think that, there's obviously been so many great things about the start of the school year, but I think another thing that's just been really top of mind for a lot of us, especially at KIPP DC leadership, is specifically around the significant fraud that was committed against KIPP during the pandemic. This was a really, really challenging situation for our team to have both a crime committed against our school system that really deprived our students and families of resources during the pandemic was just really heartbreaking. And I think just sort of the situation of having to navigate an investigation was really, really difficult for us. But I do feel pretty confident that we took all the necessary actions to alert the authorities and city leaders in the right way, conduct a really thorough internal investigation and forensic audit, make immediate improvements to our systems, and operate in as transparent as a manner we possibly could, just given the investigation with the Department of Justice. And I'm really pleased that we've already recovered $1 million through insurance, and the Department of Justice has seized assets totaling more than $800,000. So we're feeling really confident that we can recoup a significant amount of the loss there. But we do, we take our financial responsibility very seriously, and we've got to continue to improve our financial controls and our asset management systems, just based on the findings of this internal review we've done. And in response to this, like we've been working very closely with the Department of Justice and our board of directors and the public charter school board, just to make sure we have all the right oversights in place and the right accountability in place, as well as just additional controls. So just for this group too, we're always happy to talk through the situation and our response with anybody who has questions or concerns. So please feel free to reach out to me directly if you want to schedule some time to chat. But always happy to have that conversation.
Kristen, your question was just like, what's top of mind?
Yeah, just top of mind and something, additional challenges that I think you might not have had the chance to highlight that are
Sure.
you're hearing from school leaders?
Sure. I mean, I think on the school side, similar to many school systems across the country, and just like the DMV, like teacher retention or just the teacher shortage, right? We're relatively like well-staffed here, but it was we definitely hired later in the season than we ever have. And I've been at KIPP for a long time, and that, when Susan or Shannon calls up someone from another network, it's like very similar when I talk to friends who work at either KIPP organizations in different states or just friends who work in DCPS, right? Just like getting and securing enough teachers was definitely more of a challenge. So I think we are definitely thinking about how do we make sure that we understand what teachers need to be successful? How do we provide them with that from a resource standpoint, but also just from like a way of being about our schools and the environment that makes people excited to stay and continue to stay here, and just really be thoughtful around the shifting just dynamic, like post-pandemic, not only in education, but in other industries that's affected like how people view their work, right? So that is definitely top of mind on the school side for sure.
Great, thanks for sharing. And Makia, I have another question for you from one of our attendees. Do you mind just like sharing like what is required in terms of like COVID boosters for our students and like how, and our teachers and whatnot at KIPP DC?
Sure. So we follow basically like the recommendations from the CDC and the Department of Health. So our first of all, I'll start with staff. Our staff, we need to be vaccinated to work at a KIPP DC school. And so that was something that we dug into. Vaccination rates for students vary depending on age. So essentially, like if the vaccine for your student's age is one that's not under like emergency status, then students need to be vaccinated. And I'm pretty sure that for KIPP DC, we've been sending out some notifications to parents just in general about not only COVID vaccinations, but also like immunizations. That's part of like a bigger DC campaign to make sure students are up to date on their shots. Masking is optional in our schools, just in line with like the recommendation of like DC Health. I think that they reserve the right to like bring masking back if conditions in the community change that. But right now, we recommend highly that if people feel comfortable with it, their student does get vaccinated. We also have frequently have COVID vaccination clinics like located at our schools. And I'm happy to talk with, if it's Ms. McDaniels, I'm happy to talk a bit more about that. Yeah.
Great, thank you for sharing. Tom, I have a question for you as you are working closely with Shannon and getting her onboarded and acquainted with KIPP DC. But would love for you to share just like, when is she full-time? Like, how is she, also spending her time really getting to learn the network and our staff and supporters right now?
Yeah, I'm just going to give a little bit of context about Shannon as well. So she's coming to us with a ton of experience in education, with a lot of different hats on. She started her career as a guidance counselor. From there, moved into law and went to law school and worked as sort of a legal advocate for schools, became a school leader, and then founded a charter school here in DC. And then for the past several years has actually been the head of the DC Public Charter School Alliance, which is an advocacy organization. So she comes from with a very wide breadth of experience, especially in the advocacy front. And I think one of the things that she just has felt incredibly strongly about all along is to come into a space of listening and learning. And making sure that she's just getting all the right input and sort of understanding the context and really hearing directly from all the different stakeholders. So Ahmad, you had asked a question about doing a fireside chat with parents as well. And I think that's definitely on the radar. We don't have anything scheduled quite yet. So Shannon, because of the role she's currently in, is in a slow transition. So she's only with us about half time right now. But come November, she will be with us full time. And I think wants to find more opportunities to engage more externally. So with our staff members, with our with our family members, with our students, with partners and investors as well. So yeah, it's been great to kind of even hear some of the initial conversations she's had with folks and get a sense of what is top of mind for our community as we're thinking about the future of KIPP. And I think she's going to be an incredible leader to take us there.
Makia, one of my last questions for you is just, I would love for you just maybe to touch on one of the investments you talked about. And so I know we had shared last year around our Learning Accelerator program, but can you just maybe go a little bit more in depth in terms of how this program has expanded this school year and any other updates that would be great to share with our audience today?
Sure. So the concept of acceleration is find really skilled teachers or former teachers to teach small groups of students using a research-based curriculum on foundational skills in either math or literacy. In addition to, they still receive the grade level content every day, usually 4 to 5 times a week in a small group, and we progress monitor. So for literacy, we partner with the Literacy Lab and they work with our K-1-2 students. But in 3 through 8, we might be working with a 6th or 5th grader who still needs help, like with phonics, right? Sounding out words, making sure that they can decode multisyllabic words. We know that if you are unable to access words in a text, that you'll be unable to comprehend. And so the point of acceleration is to make sure that we're shoring up those foundational skills. In math, same, right? We need to make sure students have the ability to master like basic numerical operations so that they can then tackle some of the other more challenging math content. So for acceleration, one, we just started sooner. Like we had acceleration last year, so we've started like a month ago. Like groups are already being pulled, right? Because like we know what to do. And we just have more students and we're at more campus. So those accelerators pull students all day long. And, I think we would love to like even have more accelerators, and that might be something that we consider as we think about like space. Again, I talked about that, like that hard teacher hiring, right? And maybe we can find more people. But really it was about starting sooner, pooling more kids and making sure it was happening at every campus that serves grades 3 through 8.
My last question for the two of you is one I like to ask most people, but you have this incredible group of supporters like online. And so would love for each of you to share just like how can our donors, community organizations, foundations really support KIPP DC this school year? Makia, you kick us off.
Yeah. Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, just like how can supporters, what can people do and support KIPP DC this school year?
I can also jump in if you want.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's almost like what else? It's almost like I'm opening like a Christmas gift or something. Let me think on that. Tom, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing right now is that we have access to a lot of sort of traditional resources, which is really helpful. The things that I think are amazing though, as people, as not just KIPP, but a lot of other places are reimagining and rebuilding coming out of the pandemic, is that there's an incredible network of innovations that are out there. So if people have access to or hear of great things that we should be considering, please reach out to us and share those. We're always interested in borrowing ideas or meeting with partners who could be beneficial for our students or our families. And so that's a huge thing. Just like if you're hearing of any great things happening out there, let us know, and we can definitely would love the introduction or connection there. And then I think longer term, I mentioned before, it's great to have the opportunity to re-engage with folks. As we're thinking about the future, I think there's going to be a huge need. We met with our board earlier this week to talk about our ongoing recovery strategy and the academic interventions we need to be making. And there's a bunch of research out now that shows that we should be expecting academic recovery to take somewhere between 3 and 5 years, which is a very long stretch. And unfortunately, our federal funding for recovery really only extends for the next 1.5 to 2 years. And so we know we're going to be in a period of recovery for a much longer stretch than what we're actually funded for. And so thinking about those resources for the future are actually really important for us right now.
Makia, anything else you want to highlight?
Well, I think just, yeah, I think I love the idea of like, if you know something in the community that's going well, or like anyone wants to partner or volunteer at our schools, or like if you have a place of employment, that'd be a wonderful place for students to do a field trip. Like we're always looking for like innovation like that and just really great ideas to connect with folks in the community.
Great. Well, Makia and Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. And I just also want to extend so much gratitude to our supporters for attending today's conversation. And we would love to stay connected, so please look out for a follow-up email on ways to get involved at KIPP DC. But just want to highlight that our next conversation in November will feature a conversation between Shannon Hodge and our CEO, Susan Scheckler. So please look out for an email to RSVP, and I am wishing you all a wonderful weekend. Thanks for coming, and talk to you soon.
Thank you all.